You are listening to the Live Well with Arthritis podcast, helping you to live a healthier and happier life with your arthritis. Every episode contains science-backed support, expert advice, and a deep understanding of the reality of living with arthritis. I'm your host, Emily Johnson, also known as Arthritis Foodie. I'm a best-selling author and the founder of Live Well with Arthritis. Whether you've been living with arthritis for years, or you're navigating a new diagnosis, or perhaps you have symptoms and are looking for answers, this podcast is for you. For more support, you can join the waitlist for my course, Live Well with Arthritis, on www.livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. That's www.livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. Places are limited, so the earlier you sign up, the better. Now, let's get into the episode. Dr. Micah Yu is a quadruple board certified integrative rheumatologist specialising in rheumatology, internal medicine, integrative medicine, and functional medicine. As both a doctor and patient with arthritis, Micah brings a rare, deeply personal perspective to autoimmunity, arthritis, and whole person healing. Trained at Loma Linda University and Andrew Weil Integrative Medicine Fellowship at the University of Arizona, he is the co-founder of Dr. Lifestyle and founder of My Autoimmune MD. Here, he helps patients navigate autoimmune disease through evidence-based integrative care. On a personal note, Dr. Micah and I have been in touch since 2020. Actually, I think it might be earlier than that. He was the rheumatologist who meticulously approved all of the medical content in my first book, Beat Arthritis Naturally, and he even wrote the foreword for it too. It has been absolutely brilliant to see his work and advocacy grow over the years, and I'm honestly absolutely thrilled to have him here today. So, Dr. Micah, your expertise is truly unique, bridging the gap between high-level rheumatology and also the root cause approach to functional medicine. And of course, we've known each other since my first book, but your work has expanded so much more since then. So before we dive into our sort of 3 topic areas for today, so if you're listening, we're going to look at integrative rheumatology, the science of inflammation, and the functional medicine healing toolkit. What I'd really love, Micah, is for you to share your own journey with arthritis and how it led you to where you are today.
Thank you, Emily. It's a pleasure being on your podcast and seeing you grow in your content and in your journey in your career. So thank you so much for bringing me on. So my journey with my arthritis is quite a long story, but I'll keep it short. So I was diagnosed with gout at the age of 17 after eating a really high protein diet. And then my disease actually transformed over time. I started getting arthritis in random places that I didn't expect for being a gouty patient. It was around age 22 or 23 when I started experiencing pain in different locations, my jaw, my shoulders, elbows, feet, hands, all the joints in the peripheries from top to bottom was affected. And this went on into medical school as well. And I had no idea what was going on at that time, even though I was a medical student. I was learning about all the different diseases, but I couldn't figure myself out. I then went to different rheumatologists in Chicago where I went for medical school, and they still couldn't figure me out. They said that I had gout, but they didn't know what my other problem was. They said it could also be gout as well. All my antibodies on my rheumatology tests were negative, but I had high inflammation numbers with high ESR and CRP, which are sedimentation rate and C-reactive protein. No one ever told me about diet. I was not offered other medications at that time because we simply didn't know what else was going on besides the gout. So fast forward to residency, I was then seeing my bosses at that time, and they finally diagnosed me with spondyloarthritis, which is a type of autoimmune arthritis very similar to rheumatoid arthritis, but the pattern is a little bit different. And also it likes to attack the entheses more. The entheses is the location where your bones and tendons are connected. It's that middle point. That's called entheses. When it gets inflamed, that's enthesitis. So I had enthesitis on top of arthritis. So that's how I was diagnosed with spondyloarthritis. And if you ever heard of the terms or diseases ankylosing spondylitis or psoriatic arthritis, or even inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis, then it's the same family.
Mm.
So I have a variation of that. So I was offered, of course, medications like a good rheumatologist would be offering their patient. I, being a bad patient, refused to go on the medication, even though I was a doctor, because my pain, I felt like it wasn't bad enough. Even though it was bad, it wasn't bad enough to me where I said I want to take a lifelong medication. I want to see whether diet or some other way could heal this problem. Yes, I was flaring at least once a month. I would limp to work. I would sometimes go on a week or two eating yogurt because I couldn't open my mouth due to pain in my TMJs with swelling. Luckily, I ended up finding a way to help myself without medications. I came upon the plant-based diet back in 2018 and went on a whole food plant-based diet. Within a month or two, I started becoming pain-free. And I didn't notice that until 2 to 3 months in that I was actually not flaring or having any pain for 3 months straight. So that was very surprising for me. And then I went to go get my labs tested with my rheumatologist, who was my actual boss at the time. When I started getting into this plant-based journey, I was actually at the beginning of my rheumatology fellowship. So I was in training for rheumatology at that time. So I finished residency already. So my rheumatology boss was also my doctor as well. And to our surprise, my inflammation numbers were down. And also my pain was non-existent. So it's been an incredible journey. And I was eating a whole food plant-based diet for maybe 3 years. And then I started incorporating more fish. And then now I'm eating more of a whole foods diet. So sometimes I do eat chicken, I do eat meat from time to time, but still a plant predominant diet. And since then, I've gone through a very integrative journey. I first went into the American College of Lifestyle Medicine to get certified. Then I got certified through integrative medicine, like you mentioned earlier in the intro. And then I did functional medicine as well. So I've created my own private practice with my wife, and our clinic centers around integrative and functional medicine. Of course, we talk about diet, but we talk about other therapies, herb supplements, and other factors that can heal patients from a root cause perspective.
Wow, what a journey you've been on, Micah. What a journey.
Yeah, it's
Thank
been
you.
quite a long
Yeah.
journey.
My goodness, thank you for sharing all of that. And how interesting that you had to speak to your boss about your symptoms whilst you were studying and everything and navigating that. That must have been an interesting time for you. So I'd love for us to explore what exactly is integrative medicine and what exactly is functional medicine as well.
Great question. And it's even confusing to us that are doing this. So, integrative and functional medicine has a lot of overlap. So, functional medicine was developed by Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who's a PhD. The main organization for this is Institute of Functional Medicine.
Hmm.
I think it was in the 90s that this was developed, but integrative medicine spans way before this. It was the pioneer for this was Dr. Andrew Weil. He developed the University of Arizona's integrated medicine program, which I went through. So I think he was talking more about this in the 70s. So
Mm.
integrated medicine, let me describe the biggest difference. So integrated medicine focuses on diet, mindfulness, so mind body medicine,
Hmm.
exercise. So a lot of lifestyle medicine factors, but it also talks about supplements, herbs, and it also talks about environmental factors as well. There's In functional medicine, yes, you talk about lifestyle factors, you talk about supplements and herbs, but there's a lot of testing, a lot
Mm.
of lab work. So if you see a lot of patients come with a lot of lab work, then it's a lot of functional medicine testing they're probably doing. But integrated medicine's getting into that as well. So there's an overlap. A lot more biochemistry in functional medicine. So I would say the biggest difference is the testing piece and probably the mind body medicine piece. Mind body
Mm.
medicine is more emphasized in integrated medicine than functional medicine.
Mm. Mm.
Integrated medicine, when I was taught at University of Arizona, they emphasize more of a Mediterranean diet because that's where the evidence base lies. But yeah, that's the biggest difference between them. And I would say when it comes to practicing in the real world, a lot of chiropractors say that they do functional medicine. Not
Mm,
many chiropractors say they do integrated medicine.
mm,
So you don't need a certificate to say that you do any of these things. I just got board certified and in integrated medicine. So there's a board certificate in integrated medicine. There's a governing board for functional medicine. It's not really a board certification. You just go through like 6 courses and then you take a test and you get your certification in functional medicine.
incredible. And how
Yeah.
does this approach change the way you treat a patient compared to sort of the traditional symptom suppression model that, we're given painkillers, told to just get on with it kind of thing. And yeah.
Yeah, great question. So conventional rheumatology, when you get diagnosed, you are treated with immunosuppressant medications, methotrexate, Humira, Enbrel, the biologics. With an integrated functional medicine approach, can and still use those medications when needed. But of course, I focus on the lifestyle factors first. I try to tweak the diet, see if that puts
Mm,
patients to remission. And I've seen that just with diet alone, it has to put patients to remission in some individuals. And then I layer in supplements, herbs. I do testing in patients. I look at the gut microbiome. I look at patients have been exposed to mold, infections, Lyme disease. I look at their environment, toxins. I look at all these factors. I look at if they have other diseases as well. If they have mast activation syndrome, if they have other autoimmune problems, POTS. So not only do I do rheumatology now, but I look at all these other factors
mm,
that could be associated or even mimic rheumatic conditions.
mm,
And then from there, I try to treat it from a root cause. So do they have infection that could be causing their issue? Do they have mold toxicity or mycotoxin illness?
mm,
Do they have Lyme disease? That could be an underlying root cause of their arthritis or autoimmune disease, because a lot of times infections are a root cause of
mm.
autoimmunity, if you believe it or not. Um, so I look at it from that perspective, and I use a concoction of different therapies that I've learned over time to try to fix my patients.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned the medications that, they do have their place. You've got the DMARDs, the disease modifying rheumatic drugs and the biologics and, the likes of your naproxen and things like that.
Correct.
How do you with your patients, how do you balance the medical sort of medication side of things with the lifestyle changes that we're discussing today?
Great question. So it depends on how severe their disease is when they come to my clinic.
Mm,
If their disease is more mild, then I would say let's try lifestyle factors first and some supplements and herbs and see how that does. If they're coming to me with more severe disease, if they're coming to me with organs that are affected that are potentially dangerous where they can go to the hospital, I will put on medications on them to control the disease. I will also use steroids as well. And I will use what I've learned in my rheumatology training to control the disease to prevent them from being hospitalized. And then I will add in the functional integrative medicine piece to the puzzle to try to get them better, to eventually get them off the medications or at least minimize the amount of medications they're on.
mm, mm. It's interesting you said it depends what stage they're at when they come to you, because that was going to be my next question. Do you have a different approach for someone who is newly diagnosed who comes to you versus somebody who's been diagnosed for a number of years? And can you still help people that have had arthritis for a number of years?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends on the stage they're in, but yes, I can help everyone. But it also depends on what they want when I help them. If they're
Yeah.
very advanced where their bones are fused, their bones are twisted, and the joints are twisted, then I don't know if just some supplements and diet changes will fix that.
Mm,
Uh, It's possible, but they might need some medications on top of that. So it really depends. It doesn't matter how many years they've been having arthritis, it's or their autoimmune disease. It's more about how advanced has their progression been over that time. Because you can have arthritis or autoimmune disease for 2 years, but your disease might be very aggressive within those 2 years, and your bones
Mm,
are twisted and joints are twisted at that time. And I've seen that, or you have erosions within those
mm,
2 years. I've seen patients who have had arthritis for 8 years or 10 years, and their disease, they're not on medications, but their disease isn't that bad, even off medications. Whereas someone else, it could be very aggressive, even on medications within 2 years and still having pain. So
mm,
everyone's a little bit different in that regard. And my approach really I combine my approach with my experience as a rheumatologist because I've seen patients in the ICU as a rheumatologist. I've seen patients die in the ICU from rheumatic conditions,
mm,
and I've seen patients, in the clinic. So I see what the progression can look like from beginning to end, from mild to very severe to death's door. So I
mm.
I know when things are dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a complete spectrum, isn't it? And at the root
Hmm.
of all of it is inflammation, isn't it? And what types of arthritis and autoimmune conditions do you deal with in your practice? What's the most common things that you sort of see?
Yeah, so I see all rheumatic conditions, but the most common ones I see are rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. I see ankylosing spondylitis, lupus. What else is there? I do see gout in my clinic. I have Sjogren's as well, and then I see actually I'm getting more popular in other diseases and conditions outside of rheumatology. Some people have mentioned me on social media, and I talk about it on my YouTube channel regarding these problems. They include mast cell activation syndrome, also hypermobility, mold illnesses, Lyme disease, POTS. So I see these types of patients in my clinic as well.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because I think a lot of the work that you and I both do helps so many other conditions, not just arthritis. I mean, yeah, so it actually doesn't surprise me at all that is happening with you. So we'll move on to our next topic, which is the science of inflammation and looking at those root causes through a functional medicine lens. So, what are the primary scientific drivers of chronic inflammation?
Yeah, so the drivers of inflammation are plenty. So you have to look at the lifestyle factors first. So diet, of course, sleep. How much sleep are you getting? Are you getting broken sleep? Are you waking up too early? For diet, what are you eating a whole foods diet, first of all?
Mm,
And the second question is, what food sensitivities are you having? So a food sensitivity allergy test doesn't tell you accurately what you're
mm,
flaring to. Sometimes it can if you're lucky. I have found it more often than not that these tests are not accurate. So first, yeah, so the food sensitivity testing, you have to I wouldn't do that first. The first thing I would do is probably just examine if you're eating a whole foods diet and then seeing if you're sensitive to nightshades, lectins, and these types of foods. And then looking at stress levels, trauma, mind body medicine, and also exercise, how much exercise you're getting. And finally, on the lifestyle factors list is environmental toxins. What are you exposed to in the toxins day to day? Are you drinking from plastic water bottles every day? Because that's bisphenols and BPA that can contribute to inflammation. And other drivers of inflammation are infections, things I've talked about already, mold, viruses,
mm,
bacterias, Lyme, ticks, parasites. These are also potential root
mm.
causes of inflammation.
Thank you. And how do genetics and the environment that you're in as well also play their part in driving this chronic inflammation? Speaking from experience.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, genetics is a big one. So, genetics does play a role with having inflammation and these chronic diseases. So, you can't control your genetics, but you can work on your epigenetics by these lifestyle factors and some of these other factors that I just mentioned. So, yes, that does play a role. And no, you may not find that your parents had these diseases, but a second cousin might have it, or a great grandparent may have had this disease, or some other autoimmune disease. So that can predispose you to more chronic inflammation and a higher risk of obtaining these diseases. So it's a combination of genetic factors and um, the way you live your life and what you've been affected by.
The way I describe it is your genetics hold the bullets and your environment pulls the trigger. That's
Exactly.
my sort of turn of phrase. Well, I don't know where I got it from, but yeah, that's something that I use. And
Exactly.
yeah, and you
So,
mentioned
so,
the. Oh, sorry, go
mhm.
on.
Oh yeah, so I was gonna mention, sometimes it is more genetics than the
Mm,
environment. So you have 1 year olds having lupus, having
very
arthritis,
true.
JRA. So for those patients, it's more about the genes at that point,
Yeah.
and also maybe the way their parents or grandparents live their life that
Mm.
will get them to have quicker disease.
The epigenetics piece. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So sorry for somebody listening who doesn't know what epigenetics is, 'cause we're just like, yes, epigenetics, and then the listener might not actually know what that means. Could you just describe what epigenetics is?
Yeah, epigenetics. So you have your genes, right? But your genes can turn on and off depending on your environment, and that's your epigenetics. So your epigenetics is the way your genes get expressed, essentially.
Great, thank you. Perfect explanation. And you also mentioned just then about the world of toxic chemicals, your plastic and pollution and processed foods and environmental pollutants like, cars on the road and, all kinds of things. How did these act as triggers as well for an overactive immune system?
These environmental factors are not talked about enough, but they include like plastics, fragrances potentially, VOCs, volatile organic compounds. There's um, artificial turf, for example, and pollution, smoking. So all these things can trigger chronic inflammation. We know that they disrupt the hormones already, but there's evidence that they disrupt the immune system as well. And if you keep getting exposed to these factors and your genes are not liking them that much, and it's easier to be affected, then potentially over the long run, it can trigger new onset autoimmune diseases.
Mm, gosh, it's crazy, isn't it? Because we can't always avoid these things, can we? Unfortunately, we can do our best, but we can't always avoid them. Um, so scientifically, I'd like to come on to things that maybe we can control, or has have the potential to control at times, such as a dysregulated nervous system when we're stressed. So how does stress translate into that physical joint pain and triggering inflammation and flare-ups?
So stress is a huge trigger for flare-ups and inflammation. Your vagus nerve so your nervous system is tied directly to your immune system. And one of the biggest nerves in the body, one of the cranial nerves, is called the vagus nerves. And that connects your gut to your brain to your immune system. And your vagus nerve is your rest and digest part of your nervous system. And you want your body to be in rest and digest mode. So you want your parasympathetic nervous system to be turned on. Most of us with autoimmune disease are in fight or flight mode most of the time. And when you're stressed, it will add inflammation to the body. And that inflammation will eventually cause a flare. It might not cause a flare the same day, but over time, it can trigger a flare. You probably have experienced this. If you're listening out there, you were studying for finals, you've been in school, you're doing fine, and all of a sudden, after you take the test, you start flaring a couple of days after. Or for some of you, you might be flaring during the time of the studying of the finals or work stress. Your big
Mm,
project, you're doing fine during the big project. Once that big project is done, you start flaring as well. Same story. Or you're going through a divorce, for example, and you're flaring through the whole litigation, the problem with the relationship. So all these factors can trigger the nervous system, which will then eventually trigger inflammation and flares.
yeah, and I'm sure you've noticed this in your own life as well. I definitely have with mine, breakups, house moves, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
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 The,
Um,
the 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 biggest flare I had was when I was remodeling my house. That was the
oh my
biggest flare.
goodness. Wow. That's a big project to take on though.
Yes.
So I can imagine that would have flared you up. Yeah. While we're on flare-ups, actually, what do you do when you get a flare-up? How do you help yourself when you have a flare-up?
Yeah, if and when I do get a flare up, I take extra supplements. I like
Yeah.
to take vitamin D's, omega 3s. I take extra doses of turmeric as well. And I like to water fast also
Mm,
for 24 hours. Usually my flare is done in 24 hours. I don't get flares for days and weeks on end,
mm,
like I did back in the day. And then also I'm very strict on my diet. I will um, eat a very clean plant-based diet if I do flare.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So quite easy, simple things to do quite quickly actually when you're in that flare. Yeah.
Correct,
Um
correct.
yeah, so what I'd like to talk about as well when you're in that flare up and you have that chronic pain, it can be quite lonely. So from a medical standpoint, how does that isolation, lack of connection with family and friends, how does that actually impact your inflammation? You know, can loneliness actually be pro-inflammatory?
Yeah, so having a community is really important
Mm,
for autoimmune diseases, whether it be church, friends, or family. It's good to have a support system. Loneliness can lead to higher rates of sadness and potentially depression as well, which then will in turn affect inflammation and autoimmune disease and flares. So having a community can be very, very helpful. Um, I always encourage my patients, find a community out there, whether it be a family. If you don't have a good support system with family, then find your good support system with your friends or even church or even support groups online as well. But support groups online can sometimes be toxic as well, depending on which groups you go to.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
sometimes the patients with the most that are the sickest usually are the loudest on those support groups. So you have to choose wisely where you find your support. And also, if you have toxic relationships, people that are potentially abusing you, that are gaslighting you, that aren't supporting you, you might want to remove those relationships
Mm,
from your life because those can keep constantly giving you flares.
mm,
And it can overwhelm the medications and the things you're doing to improve your disease. So I
mm,
always encourage my patients, leave toxic relationships
mm.
and find relationships that build you up.
Absolutely, could not agree with that more. Yeah, I could not agree with that more. And back to sort of the inflammatory foods part, you were talking about the whole foods plant-based diet, but we haven't talked about the antithesis of that. What are the sort of typical inflammatory foods and inflammatory drinks and substances that people should potentially avoid to prevent getting flare-ups?
Number one is soda. So you
Mm,
mentioned drinks on there. So
yeah.
soda, anything that's refined sugar, I definitely recommend patients avoid 100%. There's no leeway with that. So soda, definitely. Even juices, I recommend not touching juices. They're full of sugar. You can have fruits. You can blend your fruits into a smoothie, but making or like orange juice, apple juice is just full of sugar that can trigger inflammation in the body. Along with the topic of sugar, that's and refined sugar is pastries, cakes, cookies. Those are full of white flour, sugar, butter in them. I do not recommend patients touch these at all. And also, ultra processed food, that's in the list with cookies and pastries, but also chips as well,
Mm,
fried food. These are all um, foods that are very popular on Super Bowl Sundays in America. I don't know in England where you are, if during you guys watch soccer, if you guys eat those foods. But I highly recommend not eating these foods. And also, specific meats are very inflammatory. Processed
mm,
meats like hot dogs, ham, bologna. I do recommend patients avoid these 100%. It's been proven that they can contribute to cancer, and we know that colon cancer is highly rising in the world, especially in the US. So
mm,
avoid those ultra processed foods. And on top of this, high salt diets and high salt foods can contribute to inflammation. We have direct evidence in the literature, scientific literature already, stating that these high salt diets or high salt intake can trigger inflammation and fight the very same medications that we can be taking for our autoimmune diseases. So those are the main obvious inflammatory foods. Then you come down to gluten. Gluten is a double whammy. Um, some patients do okay on gluten, others do very poorly with gluten. And some patients in the US, when they eat gluten, they will flare. But when they go to the UK or even Europe, they have no problems with the gluten over there. And it's unclear why at this time. Maybe it's the way the food's processed, but it could also be the glyphosate. We have put a lot of glyphosate in American food, which is why sometimes patients don't do well with starches or wheat.
Mm.
Um, Even though they're healthy, they're part of a Mediterranean diet. Some patients do flare on carbohydrates. They flare on starches, no matter whether it's gluten-free or not. So that's another category. And also, some patients do flare on meat, especially red meat and pork. So I do tell patients just to be careful of those foods. But it's not like you can't have it. Just be aware whether you're a patient or a person that flares on those foods.
And track yourself and use the 80/20 rule as well. 80% of the time be on the healthy anti-inflammatory foods, and then that 20% hopefully won't make too much of an impact. But thank you for sharing all of those. The deep fried foods is a huge one for me. Really, really is. And alcohol as well. We didn't mention alcohol, but
Oh
yeah.
yes, alcohol. I don't drink much
Yeah.
alcohol, so I forgot to mention. Yes,
Yeah.
alcohol is a big one. Alcohol and smoking. I do
Mm,
recommend avoiding 100%. One drink of alcohol will disrupt the gut microbiome. So I do not recommend any alcohol at all. Some patients
mm.
they take a drink every now and then. It's not a problem for them, but some individuals, especially if you're flaring already, you should not even be touching it.
Well, I've been 100% teetotal now for I think like 15 months now.
Oh, great,
So
awesome.
yeah, I honestly not look back, not look back. I barely
That's
drank anyway, but yeah,
That's
it's
very hard in the UK. I know you guys in the UK drink a lot of alcohol, a beer with a pub, and
oh
the
yeah,
fry food is very
culturally.
hard too with the
Yeah.
fish and chips.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, no, fish and chips would honestly literally within a few hours I'll be in a flare up with fish and chips. I actually just I yeah, I can't even remember the last time I had fish and chips because
It's
of
so
that.
good.
I know. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so we're going to move on to things that we can do or should do or kind of do help us much, much more with our arthritis and those anti-inflammatory components to everything. So in our final topic, we're going to look at functional medicine healing toolkit. So, what can listeners do to help themselves? So, what are the non-negotiable anti-inflammatory foods or dietary patterns that you believe are the most effective for arthritis?
Emily, what was the first question again?
What can listeners do to help themselves? And
Oh,
we'll start with the anti-inflammatory foods and dietary patterns. But I mean, you can
oh
start
yes.
wherever you like.
Let's start with anti-inflammatory foods.
Yeah.
So the anti-inflammatory foods, there's a lot of evidence regarding vegetables. So plant-based foods are very, very healthy. So I love cruciferous vegetables, which include broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, and kale. Those are just some examples of cruciferous vegetables. I like them a
Got the
lot.
sulforaphane in.
Yeah, they got the sulforaphane, which is a phytonutrient, which is very anti-inflammatory. It has glutathione in there as well, which is an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory also. And then, of course, it has fiber in there. So these are just
Absolutely.
some examples um, my favorite anti-inflammatory vegetables. There are other ones, of course. I love just plain lettuce. It's very easy to digest. It has some fiber in there. I like to put a lot of lettuce in my smoothies.
Oh.
Also, other one of my favorites are spinach.
Mm.
There are, eh, I just tell patients eat the colors of the rainbows. Eat beets, eat your carrots, eat even sweet potatoes is fine as well. So there's so many vegetables out there from so many different cultures. You can't go wrong with vegetables. Now, some patients do flare on nightshades, so like tomatoes, eggplants. So
Mm.
sometimes patients do have to be careful of those. And fruits are also very anti-inflammatory as well. Even though as sugar, you have fiber to slow down that digestion of that sugar. So fiber is very anti-inflammatory. Anything with fiber is great. So I love any type of fruit. I love bananas. I love, especially green bananas. I love watermelon. I love apples, oranges. There's a lot of vitamins in them. So not only are you getting fiber with these fruits and vegetables, you're getting a lot of minerals and a lot of vitamins that are anti-inflammatory. So when I was going through my remission back in the day, I was eating 8 oranges a day. I love oranges. I think
Oh.
that's what helped me a lot. I still eat a lot of oranges. Even though it has a lot of sugar, as I said, there's fiber in them. It does not give diabetes. I love oranges. So all the fruits and vegetables, and I love the beans. Beans don't make me flare. Some patients do flare on beans. but not me. It has high protein, high fibers, low calories as well. So I love
Mm.
beans. I also love chia seeds and flax seeds and hemp seeds as well. Chia seeds and flax seeds have some omega-3s in them, but more importantly, they has fiber. And the hemp seeds has fiber and a lot of protein in them. So those are just some of my favorite foods to fighting inflammation.
Have you been in my kitchen, Micah?
Have you been in my kitchen,
I know,
Emily?
literally, it's the same, literally the same foods that I eat. It's brilliant.
Excellent. Yeah,
It's
we probably have
exactly,
the
yeah.
same kitchen then.
Yeah, it's exactly why you're here today. Thank you so much for that. So, from a rheumatology perspective, in terms of exercise, how does movement help the joints and help to lower inflammatory markers?
Great question. So movement with exercise increases something called interleukin 6. So I'm going to do a brief intro to immunology here. So you have a part of your immune system called cytokines. And cytokines are just cell-to-cell signals of your immune system, and they can be anti-inflammatory, pro-inflammatory, and interleukin 6 is both anti and pro-inflammatory. So in rheumatology, we know that when interleukin 6 goes up, it's a pro-inflammatory signal, and we have rheumatology drugs to actually fight that. Or we have drugs um Actemra to lower interleukin 6. Okay, so that's an example. Uh, but when you exercise, it actually produces something called myokines, which is a cytokine from muscles, and it increases some IL-6 or interleukin 6 from the muscle. When it comes from muscle, it's actually anti-inflammatory. And so that's why I encourage patients to exercise because it can produce the anti-inflammatory interleukin 6. And also, when you exercise, it builds up the mitochondria. Mitochondria is a powerhouse of your cells, and that's where ATP is made. ATP is where you get your energy from. Without ATP, you would not be alive. You would not be getting out of bed today. So it increases mitochondria. It increases the anti-inflammatory power of the mitochondria as well. So that's why I encourage patients to lift weights if they can, build muscle. Not only just don't just run, don't just walk, lift weights.
Amazing. Yeah. All of that is so, so important, isn't it? And do you have any functional tools for calming the immune system? Things like breath work, meditation, cold exposure, specific types of sleep hygiene, anything you could recommend there?
Yeah, so I do recommend patients do breath work, box breathing, breathing 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Well, actually, breathing in 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, and then breathing out for 4 seconds. It's like a box breathing. That's an example of mindfulness because you can't think of anything else besides your breath if you're doing that.
Mm.
Um, to help with the vagus nerve, stimulate it to help with inflammation and calm yourself down. You can hum, you can sing, you can splash in cold water on your face. You can go do yoga. Um,
Mhm.
did I mention meditation already? Meditation is another one. So these are all different examples. Even exercise is an example of stimulating the vagus nerve. So all these different ways is helpful to calming the nervous system and inflammation. And if you're religious, prayer is also very powerful as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Meditation is one of my biggest hacks in the last year. I mean, I used to dip in and out of it, but I do it twice a day now for the last 10 months and it's changed everything. Yeah, it's
Oh,
really,
great.
really helped manage my stress and manage everything really. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that.
Of course.
So we're coming towards the end, so a few more questions. If you could change one more thing about how arthritis is treated in the modern healthcare system right now and in the future, what would it be?
It would be adding in the lifestyle factors
Mm.
because rheumatologist doctors are still not talking about it to this day. It's just a minority of us that are talking about it. So the lifestyle factors are very important. They're free. Exercise is free. Sleeping right is free. Managing your stress can be free unless you need a therapist and different tools. And eating correctly is not free, but it is very helpful for you. It can be more expensive sometimes than eating junk food and ultra processed food, but in the long run, you'll save money on your health. So those are things I would add to the healthcare system and making that the first discussion before just adding on medications to the patient.
Mm, mm. Fantastic. Dr. Micah, I always like to end the end of every episode asking for a one thing. What's your one key takeaway for our listeners today and something that you'd like everyone who is living with arthritis and autoimmunity to remember from you?
I want them to remember that you can get better holistically with your autoimmune disease and your arthritis. It's okay to be on medications, but if you're off of medication and you're doing fine, that's great as well. So for some patients, it could be a combination of both. So some patients, it could be just being off medications, but you can't get better in multiple ways with your autoimmune condition.
Fantastic. And finally, where can people find you, Micah?
Yeah, you can find me at a lot of different places. So I go by the handle My Autoimmune MD. That's MY Autoimmune MD. And on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, X as well, which used to be Twitter. You can also find me at Autoimmune Alchemy, which is the podcast I co-host with my wife, which we talk about autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, integrative medicine, healing. And then if you want to see me in my clinic, that's drlifestyle.org, where I give consultation all over the world. And I'm located in California, and I see patients and give medications in the US. And also, you can find me at myautoimmunemd.com, which is my personal website where I have a community where I teach on there. So you can check that out as well.
Awesome. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in touch because we have listeners in the US as well. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Micah, and I'll see you very soon.
See you very soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. You've been listening to the Live Well with Arthritis podcast. If you're enjoying it, please follow and leave a review. I'd really love to hear from you. To sign up to the waitlist for the Live Well with Arthritis course, head to livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. For any questions or to suggest topics, email us over on hello@livewellwitharthritis.com. You can follow me over on @arthritisfoodie, that's ARTHRITISFOODIE. And you can also follow Live Well with Arthritis on @livewellwitharthritis to stay tuned for the latest updates, news, podcast episodes, recipes, and a whole lot more. I'll see you there. Until next time, live well and lots of love from me to you. P.S. Before you go, I have to let you know that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your medical professional, whether that be your rheumatologist, GP, specialist, or other qualified professional. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.